John DeConnie, welcome to the Daily Wrestling News Show. We have a great slate of shows this week.
Good morning, sir. How's everything?
Very good, very good. So I want to update people on what's going on with the show because we do have some news. I have some big projects that I'm working on for minutestobelltime.com, and some of them I'm super excited about, but I can't quite let the cat out of the bag just yet. I will say that the website's going to go through a major technical upgrade. It should make it faster and give me the ability to do a lot more things in the back end. So I'm pretty pumped about that. And I'm not letting the cat out of the bag right now. So you're probably wondering, why am I saying anything at all? Well, in order to focus on getting those other projects off the ground, the Daily Wrestling News Show is going to go on hiatus for a bit. We're going to have a full slate of shows this week. They're going to be great shows, some of the best we've ever done. But then we're going to call this the end of season 1, and we're going to go on hiatus for a little bit. I do expect that over the course of time here, we'll have some content that comes out with live videos and podcasts. But the Daily Show is going to go on hiatus for a few months at least. I will announce right now, though, that we are definitely going to have a roundtable discussion 7 to 10 days after the Royal Rumble in January. Well, I guess it'll be February if we go 7 to 10 days after, but I'll probably do some pay-per-view post shows, and I hope to still do some great interviews with some of the folks that we've had on the show in the past. It just won't be every day, which means everyone that we do will be exceptional. So I'm excited about that. I think our quality is going to go way, way up. So with that, we have a great show this week. Every show this week, we're going to be talking about our hopes for wrestling in the next 3 to 4 months. And I think that's just going to come into some like really, really great conversations that we're going to have. So I'll set this up for you, John. First and foremost, you're the first guy on this week. So you're the first guy out of the door here to talk about what your hopes are. But before we do that, we did a similar exercise about 77 episodes ago when we did episode 100. And you were explaining what your hopes were for the next 6 months or so. And we've been through 6 months. So you wanted at that time the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships combined, and you wanted to see a mid-card title. So thought we'd check in on that and see how we've done. Your hope did not come true, John.
No. AEW decided to go that route, but WWE said, no, we're going to keep doing it the way we do it. And even though they kind of teased it a little bit with Becky saying, let me bring back Becky 2 belts before that disastrous title swap with Charlotte. But no, they went away from it, and we've still got our 2 individual champions, which still works. But, I just thought it would have brought more people into, they seem to have a hard time writing for anything below the top titles. So it would have forced them to, okay, you've still got all these great names at the very top echelon of the women's division. Now let's do something interesting with the people that are just one step below.
I think it's maybe more important nowadays than it was then, even when you consider the fact that they have their upper echelon, the names that have been made, right? The 4 horsewomen, and then even, I guess you could even throw Bianca and Rhea into that picture now.
Absolutely.
All these are made names that are going to be competing for those top 2 titles. But man, if they had something just a little below, and I guess they had the Queen's Crown tournament,
right? But
something for that whole section to be competing for your Carmellas, your Zelinas, your Toni Storms, your Shotzi's, your Tegans, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, any of these people. But John Smith, in response to what you said during that show, he said that he thought Bayley would be the person that would become that like undisputed champion in WWE. And it's interesting just how absent she's been, right? Like she didn't make WrestleMania and she got injured shortly after and she's been gone. So like 2021 was not Bayley's year.
Yeah. After 2020, she carried the women's division.
And the company, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Roman came back at SummerSlam So, you say what you want about how great of run he's on, and it did start in 2020, but for that 6 months between start of pandemic and Roman's return, it was Bailey. She was doing the best stuff there. And then, credit to Sasha, right? Like she was there too.
With Sasha, against Sasha, throw Asuka in the mix there, making us laugh every time she cursed at us in Chinese or whatever was going on there during those very quiet PC shows. But yeah, Bailey was the cornerstone.
Yeah. Now you had also on that show predicted that Shayna Baszler would be either the Raw or SmackDown champ, because that was one of the other prompts for that show was who was going to be a first-time champion.
Yeah.
And we didn't get our wish there, but Shayna has finally broken off from Nia. So maybe we're looking at least a run towards the top for Shayna Baszler. John Smith said on the show that he's pretty sure Shayna Baszler's catchphrase was snap, tap, or crap. We all disputed it, but he was insistent still, and I don't think we've actually gotten official clarification on that.
McAfee, I think, tried to bring that back last week when she choked out Naomi. But the original saying is tap, nap, or snap when it comes to submissions. But I suppose I could see where Shayna would throw that extra in there.
He said she definitely did it. So, all right. So no Shayna Baszler, first time champ. So let's hope that for your new hopes, and we're not talking about Star Wars on this particular show, but for your new hopes, let's hope that they come more true. So what do you got for like the next, between now and Royal Rumble? What's your hope for wrestling?
Okay. So I think we all are on the same page in believing that we're going to get something spectacular, but maybe a rerun when it comes to the Universal title. Like it's probably the road to WrestleMania will probably be Roman versus either Brock or maybe The Rock. So just between now and then, a good storyline between Roman and presumably Drew. Something believable, something fun. Don't see Roman dropping the title, but between now and the Rumble, I just want to see on both shows good, believable storyline, fun storylines for the top titles. Seth and Big E. Pretty sure Seth's not going to take the title off of Big E, but because we're also, I think, all under the same assumption that the whole point in putting the title on Big E was to get someone who could lose to Roman at Survivor Series. So a good run between Seth and Big E to get us to Survivor Series. And then after that, I don't know if you pick that up or if you put somebody, maybe Bobby comes back into the mix there. I just want to see some interesting stories with these top titles.
I think part of it is like you want to be in a position where you're pretty sure Roman's not losing, and you're pretty sure Big E's not losing the title in this particular situation, but you want that doubt to be there, right? You want that little bit of like, well, if anybody's going to take down Roman that's not named Brock and not named The Rock, Drew is probably the guy, and maybe there's a certain situation in I don't know, day one, I guess, is the only pay-per-view after Survivor Series that WWE has before the Rumble. So maybe Drew's the guy, maybe they're going to work something so that they can, flop that title a little bit, or, at least, make it interesting. Right now,
make me hesitate when I'm making my picks,
right.
Make me put some thought into it.
Right. There's nothing right now that's going to have you pick any against Roman Reigns. There's nothing. So give us that storyline that makes you just have that little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the fun thing is it's Big E's first title reign, and you think, okay, he's going to have probably 6 months with this belt. But, you throw him against guys the caliber of Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can lose a bunch of times. But is there somebody out there that you're like, oh, Big E can't get past this guy? So you brought up Bobby Lashley as a person, that he could come back to. He should come back to, the way Big E won the title and everything. And when that match gets booked, presumably sometime early next year, or maybe at WrestleMania, that's going to be one where you have to hesitate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because just the fact that they got Bobby out of the way so he wouldn't have to lose to Roman at Survivor Series, tells me that he's probably coming back around, and he's probably going to get that title back. And I would not have a problem with that because, for years I didn't believe in Bobby all that much. Obviously, I mean, from a physical standpoint, you could believe absolutely anything. The man is, carved out of granite and he looks like a mountain, but he didn't have the charisma. I wasn't really all in on him. Well, at some point in time, MVP is going to come back. Not that he 100% needs a mouthpiece, but him and MVP together are fantastic.
Sure.
So you put that back together and they get another run towards that WWE title, and I'll be all in for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, you mentioned Big E, put the title on him so that he can lose to Roman at Survivor Series. Is there any part of you that's like, maybe Big E gets that win? Any part of you that thinks that way? There's nothing at stake, right? The titles aren't
exactly. You don't drop the title there, but I think if Big E gets that win, he gets it via disqualification because the Usos actually get caught cheating this time. But I no part of me sees Roman, taking a 3 count.
Gotcha. Yeah, me either. That whoever beats Roman, that is such an important match. Whenever that happens, WWE will probably screw it up. But I don't have a lot of faith that they'll do it right. But they built Roman up to this great big monster that just seems so unbeatable. And if somebody on the up wins, it's on the come up, that's a big deal. If it's somebody that's already made, it's wasted, right? Like Brock Lesnar should not be the guy. Should not under any circumstance be the guy that beats Roman. Brock's a made man. Cain Velasquez would have been a better choice, right? Like anybody that's like on the up. Karrion Kross, anybody.
We talked in these last 6 months about about Big E being that guy. Like that would make him. But we all know it's the WWE, so it'll either be Brock or it'll be Rock because there'll be some tie-in with a trip to Saudi and blah, blah, blah. And, they will absolutely do the wrong thing.
Yeah. The wrong thing in our eyes. Well, I will be giving out a different hope. Oh, anything else on that before we move on, or any other hopes?
It's 2 quick spots.
Sure.
I'm very much looking forward to this Raquel Dakota feud.
Sure.
And I hope that goes to about Survivor Series. I hope they have a gimmick match that gets absolutely ugly in the end for the blow off. And then both of them get called up to different brands afterwards. And that's kind of a teaser for one of your future questions.
Okay. I mean, I like that too. I want to see, and it kind of leads well into my hope as well. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I want to see a good feud out of them because they are, I don't want to call them NXT OGs, but in the 2.0 era, they're kind of like, old guard.
Yeah.
But we know that they're capable of a really good match because it's the two of them and they're more mature wrestlers than a lot of the ones that are being used right now. So I think it's one of our best hopes for a really great NXT match in the next 3 months. And hopefully we don't get overexposed to it. I don't want 10 of them.
Right.
Or 10 different variations of it. But if you give me, one relatively quick here and then another big blow off one in a couple of months, I'd be really happy.
Sure.
So here's my hope. I want my NXT back. That's my hope between now and Royal Rumble. I get that we're not getting the old thing back. Right. And I prefer the new lighting and everything. I didn't really like the dark mosh pit type of vibe. I think the new look actually is a big improvement. But what I guess I know I'm not getting everything back, but what I want to be excited about NXT again. I want takeovers. I want that feeling that I'm going to get killer matches. I want excitement about call-ups and all that stuff. It feels like it's been stripped away. We haven't had a takeover in forever, and they haven't announced one. And I don't perceive great matches, with the exception of the one we just talked about, as a potential anytime in the near future. Certainly not on television, unless we get a takeover or something on Peacock. And the call-ups, I dread them more now than I'm excited about them because of what they've done with Karrion Kross and Keith Lee, and to many extents, like look at even Matt Riddle and Ricochet and Aleister Black, all these guys that just seem to be, obvious done deal stars on the main roster, and they just messed up every time. So now I dread them more than I get excited about them, and I want that to change. So that's my hope, is that now, as much as we complain about 2.0, the one thing that is good about the re-looking at NXT and what they're doing is that now the hands that are running the main roster are at least more in touch with what's going on in NXT. So one would think that there is a plan that's starting at NXT that may hatch into something on the main roster because the same people are involved throughout. That's a hope. Yeah, it's at least give them the benefit of the doubt on that. That should be a benefit of this process.
Hopefully, they feel more invested in these people when they come up.
Right. Because now, hey, look, Hunter was the scapegoat, right? He built us a bunch of guys that just didn't work out on the main roster. Who are you going to blame now?
Hunter, what have you been doing these last couple of years? Jeez.
All right. Well, John, wild ass prediction for 2022. You got one?
I've got one that I could actually see coming true, and then another one that is just pie in the sky. So the realistic one, although I don't know how realistic because it involves contract negotiations, but your inaugural Owen Hart Cup winner, Kevin Owens.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I'm trying to remember. What is the date on Kevin Owens' contract? Do you remember that from the discussions that we've had?
I thought it was somewhere in January, but I'm not entirely sure.
Let me see. Well, keep going on that point, and I'll see if I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, well, just the idea of he's probably my favorite talent in the WWE. So, whereas I don't really want to see him go, I want to see him used a little better, and there's such a stalemate at the top. I don't see him doing much of anything at the top of that company. So might as well put him over there where, okay, there's 15 people who could get a shot right around the top, but throwing him in that mix, I mean, there's just great matches to be had, and nothing but positives.
So January 31st, 2021 is the date that we have on Kevin Owens, the last known date. So that was, as I recall, the news story that came out was that when WWE got the Fox deal, they renegotiated a bunch of contracts,
right,
and pulled them in. Right, they made them not necessarily for more or less money, but for a shorter period of time. So I guess you could say it's more money in less time. So that's more money, but. January 31st is not too far away, and they haven't announced anything about the Owen Cup yet. The way they went out about it, just announcing it and everything, you think they would have some details coming out soonish, but they could probably stretch that out a bit. I guess, is there some feuds in WWE that you feel are a little left unfinished that you'd like to see him do before he were to leave and go into that atmosphere?
I mean, him and Sammy have gone back and forth 100 times. He had that great run against Roman, even though no one thought he was ever going to win. But so I don't know if there's any. I mean, you put him with anyone and he's going to entertain. But I don't know if there's any unfinished business that I see for him.
He should probably lose to Big E on the way out the door, is my thought. But I if I had the match or I don't have the match, I'm not that torn up about it one way or the other. But it'd be a credential for Big E, and they are on the same roster, so I would take that for him. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea for the Owen Hart Cup. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I'd rather see win it. The first one, I assume it's an annual. It is an annual. They announced that. So, okay, what else you got?
Okay, my way out there one that's going to be on par with my 2021 prediction. In terms of going back to the episode number 100 where we said a new champion, first time champion. WWE champion Austin Theory.
In 2022. Whoa.
That's my way the hell out there prediction.
It's obvious to me that they see something in him, right? He was taking selfies with Jeff Hardy and Dominic Mysterio, right? After he beats them. So he's not losing. They're definitely doing a little push, giving him a little push. He's got the, I guess I'll say the Andrade stank off him now, right? Because, he went back to NXT and did his tour there.
Right.
Had some coaching from Johnny Wrestling. It's interesting. I could definitely see a feud with, Big E for the WWE Championship. Could I see him winning it? Man.
I mean, he's in that mold of the prototypical, to use JR's phrase, the blue chipper. Like
Sure.
he's got the physique and on par. All right, he doesn't have the history, but on par with like a Randy Orton. He is that. If you're gonna mold a wrestler, you're starting with someone who kind of looks like him, and we've seen that he can play goofy because he's done brilliant with Johnny with all that. Now let's see, can he be just a bastard? Can he be he can work heel, but can he work serious heel?
Right.
And I think if you add that to him, he's a future star, just waiting to be molded.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and honestly, they need to go younger, right? I think they know that that's a problem that they have. They being WWE, that they need to get younger on their roster.
Sure.
And so he's there. Don't wait till he's 45 to put the title on him, Bobby Lashley and whatnot. So, and their awareness of that could lead them to doing some crazy things. So maybe it's not as wild ass as we think, but I feel like my wild ass was less wild ass than your wild ass. Somebody's gonna cut that clip. I'm just saying Roman's losing the title sometime in 2022. And I don't think it's Brock, and I don't think it's The Rock. I don't think it's Austin Theory either, or Shayna Baszler. But I think he's going to lose it to somebody, and I can't say for sure who it is. But when I look at the fact that they put we'll talk about this in the next segment, the NXT guys on the SmackDown roster for the UK tour.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's one of those guys. Braun Breaker didn't beat Tommaso Ciampa for the NXT championship, but I know they're high on him.
Sure.
They got a lot they can do with him, and he's very charismatic. Could he be the guy sometime around SummerSlam? They bring him up around the Royal Rumble. They're not going to sit on him down there in NXT. I don't believe they're going to sit on him. They're going to get him up very quick. So maybe that's my other wild ass prediction, is that he's up on the main roster around Royal Rumble time. He's a WrestleMania match. He gets a win there. Somehow he gets into the SummerSlam picture and he gets a match there against Roman and he wins. I don't know. I'm picking Roman Reigns is going to drop the title in 2022.
I could see it happening. And as we said in the previous discussion, let's just hope they do it in the right way.
That's right. Okay. The next prompt, and it's interesting, I think you were indicating something earlier. I want to know, John, who do you think is going to win the men and women's Royal Rumble in 2022? So, as I mentioned, we're going to have a roundtable 7 to 10 days after the Royal Rumble. So we're going to come back to this prediction at that point. This is way early. So this is November 1st that you were talking about this. So a lot can change between now and then. But do you have your mind's eye on somebody for both the men and the women?
Okay, for the women, I have a feeling that, like if you asked me to put money on it right now, if Vegas is taking odds right now, I'd probably put it on Rhea. Just because, like right now they're, she's doing the thing with Nikki and they're kind of downplaying her because she was way up at the top of the women's card. They've kind of pushed her down, even though she's still got gold. But I think she'll be repackaged, whether it's when she turns on Nikki or whatever. Badass Rhea is coming back at some point. That's who I'd bet on. Who I want is Raquel Gonzalez. I want a great feud with her and Dakota. Then I want her to come up to the main roster, get some wins going into the Rumble, and then I want her winning that Rumble and going on to face one of the champions at WrestleMania. So that's for the women.
There are people, let's stick with that for a second. There are people that probably should at least say, oh, it'd be too soon, because they said that about other people in the past. It'd be too soon. It'd be too soon for Raquel. But we just talked about they want to get younger. They want that stuff. I think they've made a lot of mistakes by waiting too long on people in the past.
Yeah.
So the Rumble is a spot where they can actually make a star each and every. If you name all the Royal Rumble winners from all the way back to now, there's not many people on there that aren't stars. Right. So it's a good indication that the person is going to become a big time player. So, bet on yourself, bet on the young talent that you've been grooming, put them in a spot to succeed and let them succeed. I bet you they do, especially somebody like Raquel.
I hope so.
Don't beat her 12 times and then have her become champion, because
exactly. All right. And then on the men's side, it's so dependent, I hope they don't do the Rock or Brock show up, like Rock showing up and winning the Rumble. It would be huge. It would blow the roof off of whatever building they're in, but they don't need that.
No.
Him going, either Brock Lesnar or Dwayne Johnson going to the main event of WrestleMania. You don't need a Royal Rumble build for that, but I could see them doing it.
Sure.
What should probably happen is that the Royal Rumble leads to the WWE Championship portion of the Royal Rumble the WrestleMania main event, in which case, if it's still Big E, I could see it being like a Karrion Kross, but I'm assuming Bobby's going to come back around at some point and take that title back. And what I would really like to see, if they're not going to put them together and reform, a new fancy, newfangled Hurt Business, I want to see Keith Lee go against Bobby.
Okay. So your preference is Bobby to be holding the title and Keith Lee to win the Rumble?
Yeah, maybe Bobby wins it back from Big E at the Rumble. Keith Lee wins, whatever that in-between pay-per-view is, whether they decide to go with Elimination Chamber or something else there in the middle.
Saudi Arabia. So
good point. Yeah. So Big E gets a shot again. He loses. Bobby still got it. And now the Rumble winner decides, okay, I'm going after Bobby at Mania.
It's interesting. I don't know if they have that faith in Keith Lee right now. I love the idea of Keith Lee winning though. You mentioned Brock. He's definitely going to be at Rumble. They've already announced it. So, the question is he going to be in the Rumble, or is he going to be going against Roman, or is he just going to show up? Like, what's going to happen there? So, I don't want to. A lot of people loved the Royal Rumble that Brock Lesnar just threw everybody out for the first 20. I think it sucked because we wait 12 months for the Royal Rumble, and it's a one-man show. I didn't like it.
Exactly.
There's a series of one-on-one matches, and not even good one-on-one matches. So it's so I didn't love that. I don't want to see Brock in the Rumble because I don't want to see them do that with him again.
Right.
I'll throw out Drew McIntyre right now as a heel. And not running up to Roman. Let him run up against Big E as a heel.
Okay.
We know he can do that. He was a heel for I don't know how long when he first came up to the main roster.
Sure.
They've done the babyface thing with him. I think he was getting way over. But the pandemic kind of really slowed him down.
Yeah.
So now they've got the sword thing on him, and he's kind of a laughable character. Turn him heel again. Maybe have him skewer somebody with that sword. They could do that at Extreme Rules Backlash or whatever. So.
Not so Extreme Rules.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I think that's the prompts. John, we will be revisiting those answers the next time when we do a roundtable, and that 7 to 10 day after after Royal Rumble. So I'm excited about that. I think it'll be a lot of fun when we come back to these, and we'll have everybody on, and everybody will have done their predictions. So it'll be fun to revisit all that stuff. I hope for your sake that we get this. We get the women's undercard title though. Again, I think that it's kind of needed. And you mentioned it before. And man, I guess another hope would be let's get Bayley back. Jeez.
That's actually on here somewhere. Bayley makes an amazing early return. Yeah.
Yeah. I only bring that up because she was, part of the conversation around that undisputed women's title that we talked about. But
right.
Yeah, I hope she has an early return. I hope she makes Mania this year, because her not being on Mania 2 years in a row after the year she had in 2020 is not justifiable.
Yeah, it's criminal.
So, all right, well, let's move into headlines, because we do have a few headlines. We're not a ton of news today, but we got some. So stick with me, and we'll be right back with headlines. We're back. Short break today. Tonight on Monday Night Raw, John, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Is this finally where we're going to see Bianca Belair win the Raw Women's Championship back from Becky? Is this, we've played this match 12 times now. It's got to be over, right?
Yeah, you would think so. I just I don't know if they're ready to get off of the train there with the man. So. Yeah. It's still, which is a good thing. I'm not sure going into it. It's not painfully obvious. So I like that aspect of it. I just hope this is the end of it.
DQ. That's what I'm calling for. That's what I'm pretty positive we won't have a finish to a match.
Probably right, unfortunately.
No manhandle slam there. Danhausen broke his leg over the weekend, which, that's it's just the worst, because the Ring of Honor news that just came out about all the stars being let out of their contract, Final Battle being the last day. Danhausen was under contract there. He was probably in position to negotiate a good deal with another company, because he's just been on fire. He's all over the place. Very funny, very evil. But man, having a broken leg, it'll be curious to see if he's able to get work. Luckily, he's diversified, but tough break for sure.
Yeah. I had been seeing, I'm not terribly familiar with the character, but I had known of him. But in the last month, every wrestling group or website there was using, some kind of Danhausen memes were popping up in my feed 5 times a day.
Yeah, he does comics. He has his own fan group. It's called on Facebook. It's the Danhausen Fanhausen, which makes sense. So he's everywhere. So and he's one of my wife's favorites. So unfortunately, broken leg. I'm not sure what his recovery time is, but he doesn't work a very strong style. So maybe he'll be back sooner than we think. But
there you go.
He probably won't be on Ring of Honor Final Battle.
No, wouldn't think so.
Mance Warner on the same show was also injured. He has an injury to his ankle, and I believe I just heard that he was recently released from his MLW contract, which he hadn't worked there in a long time. So another injury. So we probably won't see much of the Southern Psychopath that much. He was tag teams with Matthew Justice, and they just lost the GCW titles to the Briscoes. So it's good thing that GCW got those titles onto another team, so that they didn't have that situation. But speaking of the Briscoes, they are jaw-jacking with FTR on Twitter. So this is good, right? Like if we can get a little Briscoes FTR match, obviously I think the FTR would win. Otherwise, because I'm sure AEW would be booking it. but when you look at FTR, they've got their teams, the GTTOAT, the greatest tag team of all time, on the back of their jackets.
Right.
The Briscoes are not necessarily in everybody's conversation about that, but when you talk about Ring of Honor and you talk about teams that have been together for a long time, there aren't very many that have been together as long as the Briscoes and that have been on top of a tag division of any kind for as long as they've been on the top of the Ring of Honor tag teams titles. And they've been kept away from the major nationals WWE and AEW and TNA Impact even basically forever. So now we're in this spot where they're going to be in a position where they can work some other companies and potentially sign with other companies, and makes it really interesting. The dream match, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think if you started watching AEW and prior to that you were just a WWE fan and maybe you didn't know FTR, how great they were down at NXT, and you just saw the way they were used on the WWE main roster, them going over to AEW and showing exactly what they could do was kind of like a wow. You know, like, all right, we saw a little bit of this in the WWE, but wow, look what these guys can do. I think the Briscoes would be a lot like that. If you just know, like myself, just know of the Briscoes, don't know a lot about their in-ring acumen, but then you put them in there with someone like FTR and they really get a chance to shine, then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, where the hell have these guys been?
Sure. Yeah. So we have that. I think that hopefully that match gets booked, right? That's a hope. I should write that down.
Add that to the list.
We should add that to the list to come back to. Also, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I mentioned I posted on Facebook that he went in for surgery pertaining to prostate cancer last week on Friday, and the surgery apparently has gone as planned. So that's great news. You can look to Hacksaw Jim Duggan's social media. His wife is posting updates on his condition and everything. So best wishes to Hacksaw. So
get well soon, tough guy.
That's right. Jordan, we're talking about releases. Jordan Oliver released from his MLW contract. MLW released a few people, like 4 or 5 people in the last week. So it's interesting. They've had some people under exclusive contracts. Jordan Oliver's a young guy. He's in his low 20s. He's a GCW regular. It'll be interesting to see if there's anybody that's interested in picking him up. It's kind of crazy, when we talk about things like this in light of the Ring of Honor news. It's tough because Ring of Honor was one place for people. It's just another place for people to work. Right. And now all of this talent is available. It's like really bad time. It's probably worse than the, April 16th time to be let go, because that whole roster of Ring of Honor guys is on the market and available to take independent bookings and to take, any spot that's open on a big company roster. Yeah. And you got Jordan, who just hits the market. He's competing against all those guys, so tough break for him.
Absolutely.
Although we get some freedom, so who knows? I'm not sure how he perceives it. So, WWE is offering buy one get one free tickets for the UBS Arena show in Long Island. That's the one that they're getting outsold by AEW by a very, very wide margin. And last I checked, the buy one get one free deal is not closing the gap. So. Man, this is not looking good for them there.
And okay, it's Long Island, it's not Madison Square Garden, but I mean that's their backyard. It's New York, it's backyard. It's
not far.
Yeah,
they ran a lot of events at Nassau Coliseum, and
they cannot be happy about this news.
No. Also in WWE news, the UK tour. I think I mentioned something earlier because we were talking about Braun Breaker and whatnot.
Yeah.
But in Liverpool, Leeds, Nottingham, and Manchester, Cesaro versus Walter is going to be on all those cards. That is fun. Also, Tommaso Ciampa versus Braun Breaker versus Sami Zayn on all those cards. Those are some fun matches, and I think John, you were saying, how the heck did Sami Zayn weasel his way into that match?
Sami Zayn pulling a Daniel Bryan. What's going on there?
Yeah, no kidding. But you got a trusted worker like Sami Zayn working in there with 2 guys from NXT. Same thing with Cesaro working with Walter. It's one of those things that I'm sure there's going to be a post-match report submitted to Vince and Bruce Pritchard on those. And this is how Ciampa did. This is how Braun Breaker did. This is how Walter did. So hopefully this is an indication that Braun Breaker is going to be coming up. That's my prediction there. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just hope they find a way to put some of those on TV. I hope we get to see some of those matches.
Yeah, I agree. They also have Ciampa versus Breaker in London. So So basically, the whole UK tour is going to have some interesting characters and matches on there. So all good stuff there. And then John, finally, Bray Wyatt is a free agent. Wyndham Rotunda, I guess, is known at the moment. But yeah, free agent. He's on the open market, available for bookings. So
finally changed his Twitter handle that everyone kept saying, oh, he's definitely going back to WWE. Look, he hasn't even changed his Twitter handle. Come on. Now we get to see. Now it's going to be hopefully he pops up sooner rather than later. And you got to think he probably will, because someone's got to be chomping at the bit to get that guy and his ingenuity and his gimmick, whatever the next evolution of it may be, on television.
You know, there was a lot of talk about him potentially going to Impact, and he wasn't available when they did the last round of tapings right after Bound for Glory, so that pushes you way out.
Now, if he works tonight for them, he won't show up till April on TV.
Well, I was going to mention, he probably won't work a taping because Impact will want to have a surprise.
True.
Or they'll advertise it. One of the two. If it was Impact that he was headed to, right? Shows up someplace live, or they just plan on it and they advertise it, because it's going to be leaked if it's at a taping. You know, everybody will know the second it happens.
Absolutely.
So that's not the case. Now, he could show up live on Wednesday for AEW. He could show up Tuesday for NXT. You know, so who knows?
That would be surprising.
He could be a final battle. I mean, I think everything's on the table here. So
why not?
Absolutely. I'm sure. You know, I should add that to the list for our roundtable. Bray Wyatt. We didn't know what he was going to do. Now, presumably, by the time that comes around, we will. So
there you go.
All right. Well, that being said, John, anything we didn't cover down on in the world of wrestling that you want to today? Any hopes we didn't talk about that you had?
No, I think I ran through all the stuff that I could come up with. So let's, fingers crossed that I hit on something there.
Well, if not, it'll still be a good story point for the show. So,
absolutely.
All right. Well, let me tell folks, you've been listening to us talk about wrestling and good conversation in the last 40 minutes or so. But if you want to talk about sports, join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports, and their show kicks off at 7 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then you can catch this crew, John DeConnie and myself, along with Al Carl and John Smith, Gary Mahaffey. We all join Al as he guides us through a week of updates and highlights in the world of pro wrestling. You can find out who we think will win the week's matches. That's on the Essential Wrestling Podcast every Tuesday at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then also ProWrestlingPick'em.com. It's a place where you can join or create a Pick'em League to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And then, of course, we've got this show for the rest of the week, the Daily Wrestling News Show. We're here this week from Monday to Thursday at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube, or you can catch the audio at around noon on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever else you get your podcast. So the Daily Wrestling News Show, where we sort through all the bullshit in wrestling news to find you the truth. We're not sorting through much bullshit this week. We're speculating ourselves. We're probably starting some rumors. So.
This week we're dishing out the BS.
There you go. We're supplying it for sure. All right, John. Anything else in the world of wrestling?
I think we're good. Let's just pray we get a Raw tonight that doesn't have us looking at the clock and going, Jesus, is this over yet?
Tell me the last one you watched where you didn't do that.
Can't remember.
All right. Well, for John DeConnie, I'm Ryan Joy. I'll be back tomorrow with Travis Severance, and we will do another round of hopes and everything for wrestling. So join us then, and take care, everybody.
See ya.